to be talking to Jeff and Jeff only
Me and Yoda.
about the baby Yoda
This is not
about
the guy
the
you see.
creation process.
Yeah.
So a proper introduction would be, I met Jeff, the first time I met you was at a party
That's right.
that our good friend Chris Kringle invited me to.
Yep.
I was the only solo person there, and it was definitely a dinner party of creatives, of intuitives.
It was quite a mix.
Yeah,
It
we all
was-
had our cards read, tarot cards.
That's right. Yeah.
It was beautiful, and
Do you remember if it? I'm trying to remember
Well,
how
and-
that played out for me because I don't recall what.
well, what was interesting is you talked to me about you doing websites.
Yeah.
I needed badly a new website, of which you've now created.
And then the
several
website card
for.
came up. And
Right.
It was,
The website death card, and then the website Phoenix
here
card.
to murder your website.
But on a serious note, do you remember what the woman whose dinner party it was?
I do because I was actually working on her website, Nancy.
Right. And her husband did get, in the card reading, someone close to him was going to die, and she died like 2 days later or 1 day later.
It was very strange because I've been working on her website for over a year, and we had this dinner party, but she was going to fly to New York and do something for like a book kind of a thing. And then when she got back, I got a message from her the night before she passed, and she was excited to finally be releasing the website.
Oh
We were
my
going to go
God.
live the next day. And she passed on the day that we were supposed to go live on the website, which was very disturbing on so many levels. And I was so sad for her because she really resisted the website for years. And then she finally fell in love with the idea of presenting herself out there and went through all this effort. And there's such a journey, as you know, to building websites. And you get to know people doing this. And I really championed her cause, and I really just felt so bad for her that we didn't get to that moment. And
Right.
so I got the call, and it was so uncomfortable because I'm like, oh.
You have this beautiful finished piece.
Yeah, I
that
just
could
felt so
kind of launch her.
unresolved for her,
Right.
and me too, because I was on the journey with her.
Right.
And so it was a tough time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting twist.
So the whole thing was just kind of whack. But we met there.
We met there, and that's also how I knew you were a musician, a drummer, because Chris is a bass player.
Chris and I don't know if I was playing with him yet at the time. We may have not.
Okay.
Once in a while we were playing together. We had played together forever, and then we weren't.
Okay.
And then for a while they were playing choice gigs here in Milwaukee, but anyway, we're close friends. So.
Right. It's a good trifecta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Enjoyable. So Jeff is, amongst other things, a drummer.
We like to say percussionist.
Percussionist, sorry.
Drummer, percussionist.
Get my lingo right.
Drummer's so limiting, for the little people.
Oh, that's true. You actually make drums as well. You make.
I make
the
a
boxes.
type of drum. I make a percussion instrument called a cajon,
Okay.
because that is one that I play a lot of.
Doubles as your seat
It can.
while you're playing it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know about that.
Yeah, it's a
Percussion.
Peruvian instrument, and a lot of people see them, and they're very popular now. I play drum kit as well, and all sorts of things, but I have sort of morphed over into this hybrid percussion kit the last few years as we've added in a drummer to take over that because it was too much for one person to be a kit drummer versus percussionist, what I was doing. So we added in a variety of guys. We've got a guy named Mike now out of New York. Wonderful dude, and I like playing with him. So
Yeah, and it seems like you. I didn't understand this back when we started working together, but you drummers, even when they're professionals, still keep taking lessons.
oh yeah,
So
Oh,
you're
yeah.
constantly on this cutting
I'm
edge.
on this journey, and I really cranked it up 5 years ago. I don't know what happened, but I just realized I want to get back into this, and I've been very fortunate because in doing websites, I kind of fell into some of the best teachers there are around, and one being Bruce Becker, who's in Los Angeles, who's very well known in the community and worldwide for teaching. He's a disciple of Freddie Gruber. They were good friends, and that's a name one step removed from Buddy Rich, who they were really close friends and hung out in New York quite a bit. And so Freddie Gruber has quite a lineage, and I would say Bruce Becker is probably the top of that tree. And then James Payne, which we've been aware of, who was a different type of drummer. And so I've been very fortunate.
So you started out taking lessons for them, and now you produce for them and design websites.
It was the other way around.
Oh, the other
I
way
started
around.
doing
Okay.
websites, and it just kind of... I take that back. I reached out to Bruce Becker about a book, Life is So Funny, on a website of his, and the website was so bad. I couldn't figure out how to buy the book. I wrote him an email and I said, "Sir, I want to buy your book, but your website's really bad." And so he wrote back to me personally, and we started talking a little bit that way. And he's like, "Oh, I give lessons if you..." I started taking lessons from him, and then we talked about how bad his website was, and then it morphed into me doing his website, and now I'm producing his webinars and his Gold List series, and it's just weird how life... an email could take you down, how a bad website could take you down a very interesting path.
Well, just reaching out and wanting to help someone just because you couldn't figure
and the
it out.
joke of it is he turned me on to James, who was here from Italy, had just relocated to LA, who was having a massive amount of problems with his website. And we've now in a third year of his journey of working through that, and we have become very close friends. So it's just funny how that works out.
And that's one of the things I love digging into is how did we get here, and kind of paying homage to it in
It's
a
always
present
this
way.
serpentine style. There's never a direct arrow, is there?
I have up right now some video. Could you tell us about that a little bit? This
is a club in New York. It's actually a famous one, Stevens Talkhouse. This is where McCarthy cut his teeth, Billy Joel. It's a great venue. It's historic. They're struggling right now, like everybody, with being shut down, which is too bad. But the musician I'm playing with here is Indy Eaton, who's now based out of New York, as is most of the musicians except for the guitar player, B, who's from Arizona. I've been with him forever. Everybody else there, Mama Lee and her daughter, they're out of that area. They're famous in that area. She sung with Little Feat for a while. Mike in the background, and Jeff Marshall on bass. And so, anyway, we're just putting out our album there. We were probably running through some stuff to get ready to do a theater show in Sag Harbor, New York.
Okay.
Too long after that.
And how did you find them? What was the...
Yeah, you want to talk about an odd way of meeting people?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Inda, who probably my closest friend in the world.
Besides me.
Right, besides you. I toured with her, and I've known her now since 1999, which is a long time ago. And at the time I met her, I owned a llama alpaca farm out there in Saukville.
I was wondering how I was going to segue into llamas.
It's always music always gets you to llamas.
You
just wait around long enough,
Absolutely.
The story will reveal itself. I was wrapped up into that, and I just happened to also be working on some tech projects with a guy who happened to be a cousin of a person she knew who was on tour with her.
Okay.
And they were coming through New York to play at Shank Hall. And they needed a percussionist. And they were looking around, and someone knew I played, and I'd been kind of out of it for a little while. And I'm like, hey, I'll jump in if you want me to play cowbell. What do you need me to do?
More cowbell.
So I ended up playing the gig and got to know Inda really well. The next thing you know, I was on a tour bus traveling for the next 2 months.
Okay.
And we became fast friends, and it just never stopped. And I ended up leaving the llama farm and to do this full time. These are some of the footage you're watching here, or you maybe not, I don't know if you're watching this footage, but oh no, this is footage we're seeing. Some other stuff we did, but yeah, we ended up doing some touring, some educational projects, some recordings. I mean, we've been doing this now for 20 years. And,
Amazing.
But how I met her was through this guy, and I met her at a parking lot at a Quick Trip up in Saukville. It was our first time.
So
we
the meeting
met.
was set up, though.
It was set up through a third party.
Okay.
By accident, through somebody whose cousin had. It was like one of the most really random things. And we're always tripped up about how we met at a parking lot at a gas station.
So classy.
It's very classy.
It's
like
very
a very
classy.
First date you'd want,
Right, exactly.
Get a little
We go
hot
way
dog.
back to the Quick Trip parking lot.
It's not quite a tarot reading.
No.
But, you know, it's a
Nobody died either.
quick trip. And she was late, and I almost
Oh.
left. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't need this.
Yeah, you went inside and got a ho-ho and a slushie, and you're like,
But
I'll give her 5.
my life went in a whole different direction
Yeah.
after that fork in the road.
Right. So you would tour twice a year?
Oh, no. I mean, we'd go
Or
for
more than that?
For a long time, weeks,
Okay.
months. And then, you know, here and there.
Right.
You know, and then we'd meet up and play in different areas. And, you know, it was all herky-jerky. Some of it, for years, would be, you know, we get into mobile homes or buses, and you would do the travel, right, with the group, and that was a lot of fun and crazy. And then others, we just, you know, we'd go to different areas of the country, meet up and play specific venues, like the Rock and Roll Marathons in California. They do those, or Arizona or out west. You know, I don't know. You know, it's just it was an odd, random thing where she really wanted to use her people, her family,
Right.
and it was more important to her to bring them in and do that rather than a lot of guys would just use local dudes, and that's cool.
So you really were family on the road. You were
Absolutely.
pretty much living together.
Oh,
and-
for a month, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Chris was a part of that. You know, I toured with him for a couple of years. He was a part of that craziness. Yeah.
Pretty cool. What was it like for you? What was your headspace when COVID hit? And Yeah,
I was
describe
not
that.
taking this all that seriously because, you know, you hear about it. We were really busy. We were preparing for a big theater show in Sag Harbor, Theater. And you know what the name of the show was called? It's the name of the
Corona?
album. We were presenting our album called Shelter in Place.
Oh, wow.
And this was our first throw. We had practiced for weeks, did some practice gigs, talk house and such. And we were going to we did the theater show. It was sold out, although people were talking about canceling it. And I thought it was odd. People were showing up with like cleaning stuff. Like, this is all new. This is like on the 16th of March.
Right.
World shut down around 19th. And the next day, like, we got the gig in, although we were going to cancel it. But it packed the house. It was a great gig. Called Shelter in Place.
And
the
that
next
was-
next day, they said, get your stuff together.
Yeah.
You got a day to get on a plane and get home. And I got to LaGuardia, and it was a nightmare.
That's right. You had a tough time getting
I
back.
had a tough time. And people were really losing it.
Uh-huh.
But I got back. You know, we got back, and it's been crazy since.
Right.
Just trying to catch up. Still. No music since.
No. So what have you, would you say has been your evolution during this? It's almost a year now. So I know I did my last show on Friday the 13th of March. It was a music event. It was my opening to VJing. It was, you know, and then everything closed down. My big show the next week, I just halted. You were a few days earlier. You made it home. I remember talking to you slightly after that. And then, what's been your evolution as an artist?
You know, it took us a lot. I know, talking to many people, the shock of it all and the awe of it, to have music clubs shut down, and everybody from just the guy who's gigging with his banjo to Grammy Award winners are no longer playing gigs. People like Bruce, who are friends with pretty big guys, they're not doing nothing, sitting in their studio. It's a very weird thing. And then the unknown of that for so long, you know, there were some people quickly trying to figure out how to do online stuff, online lessons, which has been the evolution of kind of where I'm at now with OBS and all this, because it became a necessity to figure out how do we get people to take some lessons, not just from Skype, but take it to another level. You know, whether it's, you know, Dave Weckl or, you know, big drummers, Mark Schulman's of the world, or whoever, down to just a guy down the street. How do we make a living? They had to go to lessons, and there's just no gigs. So it's been a little bit of a death to go, there's no outlet. And so what's the purpose? What are we doing? You know, what is your norm here? And I think it took months to start getting a groove of, this is here to stay. And so I got to start finding some kind of path. What is that going to be? Musically, I decided the path really digging in a little bit more on skill acquisition and learning that way, and just saying we're going to settle and immerse into things that are troubling me. Maybe it's a hand technique or something, whatever.
Okay.
And then the other part of me just started looking for other things that I could add on to some of these web development skills, or presentation skills. And that's
Which I, of course, benefit from.
somehow
you created
you,
some.
somehow you've stolen my.
You created some magic for my evolution, because that was, I mean, without purpose, without our art. So in this time, when usually our passion is our therapy, and you can't perform out, what are some of the other things that you do in life to kind of balance your mindset and keep healthy? And
Well, I mean, for a long time I was doing like everybody. I don't think I was really working out. There was no gym. Nobody even wanted to go out and really run. Like there was for a while there. Remember there was like, oh, you'll get it running. Or people will look at you weird for not wearing a mask. Like it took a while to find balance to figure out, just get back into eating normal.
yeah.
Because for a while I was like, what are we doing? Everybody's just eating junk food. It's like a vacation, right? Oh, it'll be over soon. We're just going to go for 3 weeks, mitigate, and we'll be fine. Well, that never happened. And then 3 weeks later, we're all like 5 pounds heavier going, this is here to stay. And we're getting into some bad habits now, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we're not working out, we're eating kind of not so great. And we're depressed, and we're worried, and we're afraid. I remember spending time calling my music friends a lot, going, hey man, how you doing? And they're not doing great. People are really hurting.
Yeah, so you wanna make sure to check in with anyone, yet if everyone's in the same
It's weird when everybody's in the
sinking
same
boat.
Titanic.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, everybody's picking up a violin on this thing because it's going down. You know?
Picking up a violin.
Everybody's going to play
Yeah.
on the deck. It just took a long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, for musicians, and I saw it. I mean, venues are dying, and it's making other people really worried about the future, long term. I don't know what that is. I have no plans right now to play out live, and that's weird after a year.
Right. So was there a point of, I don't want to say like throwing in the towel, but almost like surrendering to this?
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was?
An acceptance of this is
Yeah.
not going anywhere. Fortunately, I have other things that I do enjoy. I was doing, on the side, I would like to do these web projects, and that's a different part of my brain, so I just really enjoy problem solving that way. And there was a need for that because people were having to put everything online, restaurants, everything. So that was kind of a fun thing, although it was weird because people were desperate, so it wasn't fun. It was a really negative reason to be working, and I felt bad, and we had money. But I remember going, this is here. I got to figure something out, and music's not going to... I probably would be fall, where I went, I better find something out of this that I really enjoy, maybe I can use. And part of it, too, you asked what I was doing. I started getting into a little gaming, because that was something I would never do, was frivolous, but now that we're home in our jammies all the time, I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll spend a couple hours gaming. And I fell in this game called Sea of Thieves, which is a pirate game. And I found different people. I found this guy named Jeff, who is actually Canada and Quebec.
Okay.
He's from France. He speaks English, and we met online in a weird way. He was trying to sink me in my ship, and we became friends, and now we play.
That's how you meet your best friends.
I always meet people when they sink your ships. And we are crabby pirates, and we yell at each other when we play, but we have a good time, and it's a neat, I learn about him.
Okay.
He learns about me. And that's been kind of an interesting relationship.
interesting.
In fact, he wrote me this morning, and how you doing? And he had COVID, so he's just getting over that.
And is he in the arts at all? In music at all?
He's a designer. He's what do you call it? Digital designer.
Okay.
So he's very creative.
Yeah.
Very good
so
at what he does.
a way to kind of check out, and yet, be stimulated, have some fun. We can't meet
playing
people
games.
in bars anymore.
No, you can't. So while we're playing games, we're talking about how you're doing. What do you plan on doing? What's your status in Canada? Are you buying a house? And he's got a girlfriend. So our dogs. We send pictures of our dog. Like we're learning about each other, and this is a new world way of meeting up. It's pirate game grinder for friends. I don't know.
Yeah, pirate game grinder.
without all the next day regret and
sink my
remorse.
ship again. Yeah, exactly. There's no walk of shame.
There's no walk of shame.
Just walking
No.
the plank.
No,
But no walk of
just
shame.
playing too long sometimes. But
So when you were groggy for our video meetings, sometimes it
That's
was
why.
because of Pierre.
But you know what's funny? It was the gaming that got me into this because I started checking out Twitch. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting quality of Twitch. How are they doing this? What is OBS? How are they doing such great online stuff?
So that's how you got into OBS.
That's exactly how it happened.
Wow.
Because I got interested in
OBS, by the way, is
open broadcasting software.
Oh, now I know. Hey.
It's not just
Bandwidth.
It's not just a pretty acronym.
It's not just. I guess an acronym is if you can say it. This is just an abbreviation.
You're
Yeah.
right. I guess
So
that's
an acronym would be like PETA, because
Yeah, you're right.
you can say it and it spells out. That came up the other day. I have
So-
smart children.
So that you know, but you didn't know this was open broadcast.
No, I knew it wasn't an acronym.
So I started going down every YouTube dump there
Okay.
was, and then I started going, how do you do this? I don't know why. I had time, and I had some idea going, ooh, I'd like to demystify this. This could
Okay.
be interesting to open some doors for me or maybe
And
clients.
it is in your field.
It's another visual way of presenting, or I could present myself, or could I use this as I'm building my instruments to to put out there in the streaming world on YouTube? I don't know. We're all just looking for something
Right.
that we like, that maybe we can find a way to feed our families. I don't know.
Right. Well, to me, when you explain this to me and when you help me initially like install it and learn how to work it and then reminded me, I realize this is the software, this is the portal, this is the vessel for the things that I want to do with the evolution.
Yeah.
And you're already doing this for your
Yeah, and I'm learning on the fly. I
clients,
mean,
yeah.
look, I'm just faking it too. Like everybody fakes it. So
Yeah.
you call me and go, hey, I'm having a problem with, and I'm like, that's cool. I'll get this handled. And of course, what I'm doing, I'm on Google going, how do I fix this problem?
Right.
Because I'm just learning.
Well, and
We're all
remarkably,
learning.
you're like usually 20 steps ahead, whether it's with the lighting or with the sound or obviously the software. You're always light years ahead. It's pretty.
I enjoy
That's
that,
great.
and I like the problem solving, and I'm really into the workings of it. So it's at night. Also, I'm doing is going through tutorials and YouTube videos,
Yeah.
and then testing things nonstop. Okay, what does this do? What does this lighting do? It just interests me.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime something interests you, you will spend time with it.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time with it, and then it just seems to open up in the next thing that I want to accomplish with it. And I don't know to what end. It's great at helping people, that really need that help, and there are a lot of people who need that help. And like I said, I'm with Bruce. I'm actually producing remotely his webinars and his live streams now, which is a cool thing to be able to do.
Absolutely.
So sit here and say, okay, just give me your camera feed.
Right.
I will produce.
So
your stuff.
essentially, remotely, whether it's musicians, putting together big meetings, presentations, putting together whatever it is, you can direct them on what needs to be done on their end, and then you can make it all look seamless.
Yeah, so you can either set them up so where they can just present it themselves. The problem with that is, with presenting is then you're pushing buttons, bending over, turning on cameras. You're trying to stay ahead of that while also be engaging, and
Right.
that's a little bit hard to do.
Or when you're a drummer and your hands are full.
Well, and just as a presenter, you're not in that space. That's why you would have a producer. So I'm trying to find ways with some people, especially with Bruce, where he's got 3 camera angles and he's got notations that need to go up at different times for music to represent what he's trying to play at that given time. So if we set our scenes up in something like OBS, we can put our blueprint out or our script out.
Right.
And if we have that discussion ahead of time, I can bring them in, I can set
It'd
them
be
up.
seamless.
I can put out to the audience what he wants to be seen without him having to go through it all. So I'll put up the notations, I'll put up the intro screen, and then you do all the stuff for him. So it's a lofty thing, it's a lofty goal, and we're just now nibbling at it and playing with it, and so far so good.
Right.
To do it really right, you can really get into some really heady stuff that gets really expensive, that like NBC would do some direct high quality 4K stuff with the internet. We're not going to be able to do because the cost is prohibitive. But in today's world, we're all becoming accustomed to going, it's good enough.
Right.
You know, I can see you.
And I think I know you've helped me with that. You know, there is no perfect. And then we just wait to share, and we wait to, I mean, learning on the fly is the only way I know I can sustain interest.
Yeah, I've learned a long time ago, nibble at it.
Right.
Get good at something, and don't worry about if it's the best equipment, because it's not going to be. And maximize it, maybe upgrade as you go. But the most important thing is creating and getting this out. And if you can do that, that's really all the audience cares about. As long as it isn't a distracting thing, as long as it's not a weird video or the sound's terrible.
Right.
That's not going to be what draws people in. It's going to be the content.
Which happens sometimes.
It does happen. Like,
there's no sound.
Yeah, you got to turn that.
Yeah.
And that's why you need a producer, see?
Right, exactly.
It's like,
or to look at your comments and see that we can't hear you. Yeah.
But what a great learning experience for you.
Totally.
You'll probably never do that again.
No, never.
Dummy check this. Dummy check that.
Exactly. Yeah, check twice.
But I mean, your evolution, as people have been watching, has been amazing, right? I mean, your quality, the way you're always testing and doing different things with lighting and where you're presenting. You can see it, you know, and it's really interesting to go back and look, even myself, not that long ago, to look at our original videos and presentations. I go, wow, that was rough, but that got me here. You can't get to Z without B, you know.
Absolutely. So have you ever met Bruce face to face?
Yes.
Okay.
We were going to. I was going to be going to LA. We were going to do some drum camps. He was going to do some week-long drum camps. I was going to work on those with him. That got shut down, of course. So then we started doing remote. But he taught a master class in PASIC, which is an international percussive arts group organization in Indianapolis a couple years ago, and we hooked up there and had a good time for that week. He did a wonderful master class there, and then we had all these other plans, and they just got shut down.
How do you see your musical evolution opening back up? Would it be something like that first and then gigs, or?
Yeah, I don't know where the gigs are going to go from here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've written them off, but I'm not hanging around waiting.
Right.
It's such an
You've
unknown
launched,
on so many levels. I have weirdly, Inda's putting together, they had recorded really massively the theater gig, the last one we did, and sat, like her, everything just sat, and then we knew it was a wonderful show. We knew we had 4 cameras on it. We had great recording of it. We knew the show was great, but nobody really wanted to sit and look at it after we all got sent home. Suppression. But they went back and looked at it, and right now they're working on cutting that up and editing. Okay. And in fact, tomorrow I have a band Zoom meeting tomorrow night with everybody around the country. Just discuss the clips and what we're going to be doing with this. So that's kind of an interesting nugget. But as far as live goes, there's just nothing on the horizon.
That's really interesting that there was, because when there's so much hype and I don't even want to say hype, but capturing of something that was essentially the last of, you've got so much, and then it's called Sheltered in Place.
All of us were like gut-wrenched because we were going to go on tour in the summer, but to hear everybody use Shelter in Place in this weird negative way just after we had the show, this album.
Named Sheltered in Place.
It just was so, we couldn't believe it. We're like, this was the last show that was live music really in the New York area, and we're like, can you just believe this? Can you believe that the last show
make this shit up.
Was named Shelter in Place for an album called Shelter in Place?
Right, and then you had the Shelter in Place now for a year.
So now we're all like, you realize that that's just tainted this whole project, because everybody, first of all, they're gonna be like, oh God, I don't hear that. Or they're gonna be like, oh, you named your album, how lame and trite. You just went easy and named this album after Shelter in Place, and then it was named 2 years before.
Well, and maybe that's the video, is that who would have thought? Yeah. The meaning of this, or.
So, we're gonna cut it up and distribute it and have fun with it. And if we're the only ones who watch it, fine. It doesn't matter. I think at some point you have to give homage to your efforts, which
Absolutely.
was so massive. The amount of effort that went into just doing the album and the years of writing the music and going into producing it and getting it and practicing and testing it, and then going to do a show like this, which it took it on its own massive effort.
Right.
I think you have to at least respect it and put closure
Absolutely.
to it.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's closure.
Yeah.
But maybe that's
But
a
I don't-
chapter
yes.
that now you can walk.
I think if you ask any musician right now, there's no answer to where there is.
Right.
James got signed by Cataclysm. It's a huge band out of Italy.
Mhm.
They're sitting at home.
Right.
They have no endpoint. They have no idea what they're doing.
Well, and music is such a, in my opinion, whether it's, electronic or you're playing instruments, it's a live thing. Like, I want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to hear it. I want to feel it. I mean, I guess if you have good speakers, you can do the virtual thing. But, and as a visual artist, I'm trying to bridge that gap too, but it's
Yeah.
not the same. It's not
No.
the same as a big opening. It's not the same as being there live and being in the energy with people. So it's got to be interesting to
The
try and
shared
talk
experience
yourself
is
into.
where the energy and the just everything comes together.
Mhm.
So without shared experience, it's just not the same.
Right.
And you can try to share experience and watch a movie together on Zoom. It's not fulfilling.
Right.
There's just something about being in that room, feeling the same reverberation
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the same visual at the same time, really from the same perspective.
Absolutely.
And so there's that share, and we're all missing shared experiences in life because we're all binging at different times TV shows. We're never
Mhm.
sitting down together on a Sunday night watching the Sunday night ABC movie anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That shared experience, remember, we used to have. The only shared experiences now maybe are like sporting events, Super Bowl
Sure.
or something. That would probably be the last of it. But most people don't consume anymore in a shared way.
Mm-hmm.
So now if you take the live experience away, I mean, there are some local guys that I know who are doing a gig here and there, but I
Mhm.
think if you ask them, it's just day by day.
Right.
And it's not a great way to do
I
it.
feel like summer is going to be, we're going to be breaking out of the chrysalis.
I think people have reached an end point.
Right.
So I think regardless, there's going to be a lot of people,
Absolutely.
whether
Whatever
they're
you
able
think
to or
about
not,
the
they're going, whatever,
vaccine or anything
politics,
else.
society, I just think people are going to say, I'm not doing this. I can't go through another summer.
Right. I need my music. And it's also fresh air. It's outside. It's healthy. We need it.
We're social beings, and now I'm an introvert by heart, but yet I want to go out and play music and do it in a public
Mhm.
setting and get the feedback.
Mhm.
We do that to share that feedback, give and take as an artist, whether you paint something and you go to a gallery and you get that feedback. And even if it's negative, I want to feel that energy one-on-one or as a group. Without that, I'm not saying it's not worth doing, but it does take a lot of the energy
Mhm.
to do it out. Because there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into
Oh my
preparing
God.
for
Absolutely. The
a show of
effort,
any
the
kind.
practice you've got to put in.
so much.
Well, and I've thanked you before, but thank you again because it's that co-creation. When you're on your own, that's one thing. It's fine for quite a while, but exponentially, when you can co-create something, I can only imagine when you're playing with a whole band, and then you've got an audience. That energy must be electrifying. And then you can do, because you are an introvert and you very much enjoy going
Most
back.
drummers are in some way. That's why we're sitting in the back.
You-
And it's
Yeah,
a weird
exactly.
experience because if I'm a guitar player, I can kind of, I don't know. As a drummer, it's great. I love sitting down and playing. I have a studio and I play, and I
Mhm.
take a lot of enjoyment out of that. But it's meant to be played and supporting other musicians.
Right.
This groove is
The
supposed to be used
co-creation.
to fill gaps,
Mhm.
to support other people's music on top. That's, yeah, drum groups, that's fine. But I'm in a standard setting, I would be supporting.
Right.
And I like that supporting role, and I like providing
Right.
that groove and the move.
It's a team creation. Whether
It's a team
and-
sport.
And I think a lot of those things obviously are missing now. So,
It's tough to
Yeah.
even collaborate. You can do it. Yeah, you can send text files. It's fine. We did that before COVID hit. We would send files and draft them up and practice and send them back. That's fine. That's great. But in general, there's just no point. Like
Right.
there's no point out here right now, and there's no target.
So putting your energy into new learning and new things you can get excited about.
gotta
That's
fill.
obviously where it's at right now.
It's where it's at for me. I'm going to learn a language. So my language right now is OBS, and there's probably some 16-year-old who can run circles around me on all of this stuff. Although I find that a lot of the teenagers have no idea how to set any of this stuff up because they become consumers where we were tinkerers. We could build computers. We were into that mindset.
Yeah, there's always back alley ways around. If this doesn't work, then
We'll
maybe
do this.
will work.
And there are kids who do that, but nowadays kids are like iPhone, computer. It worked for them, and so they weren't about tinkering and really doing a lot of that like we did. And so they don't really know how to set up some of the complexities of audio routing and all these different little things. So I've actually had to help, like my nephew and some of these kids. They'd be like, "Oh, you know how to do it," and they don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's fine. But I'm sure there are a lot of people who can run circles around me. That's okay. It's not a competition, but it's a new language for me. And I could go back and try to relearn French, but no, I don't really want to.
Well, and it's keeping your mind engaged. I mean, it does play with everything else you've done. You know, you're growing on your entire past, which is pretty cool and necessary right now. So
I wanted something that I was interested in that also had some synergies to what I was already doing. I was already dealing with presentation stuff. I could do anything and get it online in any way you wanted to do. But I was always relying on other people to do some of the video aspects of it or some of the streaming. I'm like, why don't I just figure that out? So if I want to be able to stream out something that I do, whether it's my building my boxes or even playing drums or whatever, or just to say something to two people, I could at least do that. I don't have to rely on somebody, and I also enjoy it.
yeah,
And if I could teach other people, great. And if I could teach other people and make a couple dollars, great. I'm not above that.
right. You can utilize your time,
I'm for it.
which kind of we had.
Skill acquisition.
Very cool.
So, keeping your minds busy. I have a little. Anybody knows me knows I have anxiety, and so if I do not keep my mind moving in a direction, I can slip easy into depression and anxiety, and that's a very difficult thing. And that was taken from us. I mean, beyond the fear of COVID, and then taking away things you enjoy, and we all know that the joy ledger is all off. Like our ledger of joy and negativity and that balance sheet is all screwed up right now. There isn't a lot of input in joy because we've taken out music or creativity, being with other people, seeing our older relatives, which I have that too, and I'm sure you do. And so it's a very difficult thing. Or if you have kids, it's very difficult to watch them go through whatever. The joy thing is not a lot of input.
We're out of whack right now.
So we're very vulnerable right now. And so if you have depression and you have anxiety, that is a very big minefield to meander through and not step on. So I have to be wary of it, like a lot of people I know have to be very careful.
Have your tools.
You have your tools, be aware, be okay asking other people or talking to other people about the issue, which is a big part of it.
Yeah, knowing when. I run that balance, I think, with myself and certainly with you and other friends, like knowing when to maybe push a little, knowing when to ask.
That's a big thing, and it's very difficult when you're in that mode, right? It's a tough cycle, and anybody that deals with it knows. So,
yeah, because typically you don't have a choice. You're thrown in with your band. You're going to play. You're going to practice. You're going to,
And oddly, that I have no anxiety over that, right? So if I perform with 2 people or 2,000, I don't have anxiety performing, which is odd. But
it's when you're left alone with your mind.
It's true, though.
Yeah.
I have a lot of other general anxiety type of things that trigger me.
Right.
Being alone in my
Do
mind.
you think that's because you are channeling your focus on exactly, not just what you love, but it requires such attention and focus?
Yeah.
Your heart can sink, your mind can sink. Everything is just, you're playing. You're in that group flow or in your practice flow. You've got the rhythm.
I think it's twofold. I think it's that because if your mind is focused here, then the voices are not going to penetrate out here, and you don't really notice it. So that's one. And then when you're doing something that's so focused that you enjoy, then that feeds that positivity, that serotonin.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a double whammy of focusing something, but also doing something you just really enjoy. That's a really nice, it's like a bubble that you
Right
can
now,
enter.
just you describing it and just imagining, being in that setting, like I feel happier.
Right. It's because
I
it's a
can
visual
feel
you understand.
my heart releasing stuff and being like, yeah,
You
just
know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And then to
hugging after a show.
Right.
Yeah, moving with people, and like you keep saying, like that it's that shared energy, that combined energy.
yeah, there's a shared experience and when you do a live show for us too, for example, there's such a shared energy with the audience, but there's a shared energy with the people on stage, and it's great to talk to the people, but the best part is in the green room, wherever, sharing that moment with the people after that fight, that
Right.
You going to war or going to the game or whatever you want to put it out there. There's always that adrenaline after of going, oh, that was great, and sometimes it's not great, and you share that experience. But if it's good, it's just
But it's
there's
shared.
something to do and say we
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
We got through this tonight, and it's the same thing if you do a gallery show or anything. It's just we all know how hard it is to get
Right.
there, and so
Right.
when you can focus on that, yeah, I think it's easier not to fall into that trap of hearing voices and getting into corners that you will allow yourself, because that's all that is, right? It's allowing voices to come out.
Right. Placing
start
your
to
attention
play
on
on
the
you.
voices instead of
Yeah.
maybe your work or something creative.
Whatever their triggers are, they're there, and we all have different tools, and I have different tools I've learned. And if you have to take medicine or your type of medicine, then fine, like whatever it takes for you
Right.
to get through it. But
Whatever the methods are.
right now is not an easy time.
No. And I'd like to next time talk about that. It's I'm always very fascinated with, because it's the programming, it's our backstory with, and you and I have talked, and you've been a great advocate, and checking in, and a partner in this anxiety thing, where, like right now, I just took a deep breath, right? It's like, remember to breathe, just reminding each other of some of those things. But yeah, I know a lot of things have happened in your life, and some of them are, traumatizing, some of them fascinating, but they make what you've done with them makes the man. So I think it would be fun in part dos.
Do see, I'm speaking French
That's
again.
French.
I need to know. I
We're
noticed.
all going back to the ship. What's your friend's name?
Jeff,
Yeah, okay. His name's Jeff too?
the French guy.
The sunk you?
Yes, but it's with a G because it's
Oh,
special
it's
French.
Joffrey.
So it's Joff.
It's
It's
Joff and
I am
Joffrey.
the American trash mutt named Jeff.
You're Jeffrey, okay?
Yeah, I'm Jeffrey.
You're Jeffrey. He can be Joff or whatever.
He's Joff from now. He lives in Quebec. So.
Now I want to meet him. Quebec. That sounds even colder. than
It is
here.
colder.
Yeah.
They're hardy like us, and
Yeah.
he's trippy. I mean, and there are definitely differences in our personalities based on culture. It's really an interesting
Which is
crossover.
great. Yeah, we don't necessarily want to find someone just like us to.
No, I'd bore me to death.
Yeah.
I don't need none of me. I would not live with me.
There's only one of you, Jeffrey. Only one of you.
Yeah, we need that.
But yeah, in part deux, we'll dig into the backstory,
Oh,
which to me always illuminates the present.
it does.
Yeah, in this creation story that is you.
Okay, I'm in.
All right, people, that is part one.
I enjoyed. Thank you.
Till next time, bitches.
Till next time, bitches.
And cut.
Figure it out.
And we're live. We're here today with Jeff Smith.
Go by
It
Jeffrey.
only we'll
You
go
know.
by Jeffrey. This is the Jeffrey.
Once you get past 12 years old, I think you gotta add the re on it. Because it's a terrible name to begin with. And then if you just use Jeff, no one should be named Jeff with like red hair and freckles as
Jeffy,
a child.
no Jeffy.
That happened. That needs to
You
stop.
went through that
That shit needs
stage.
to end at 11, not 12. Okay. Once you
In
get
fact, 10 would have been fine.
never preteen, you get that age. No one needs to be called Jeffy.
Jeffy, no.
You're a
Well, you
chubby
know-
little redheaded freckled kid wearing chubby
Aw.
Wranglers.
At least
You
it
go-
wasn't Jiffy. Let's bring that back. Let's bring that back.
That's all sorts of torture.
I'm laughing. I'm like shaking the table. Well, I did that. I was always Jenny. Sometimes Jen.
It's all right.
I had a boyfriend that was Genevieve.
Okay, that's weird.
You know, Jennifer, Jennifer.
Wait,
but
he's calling you that? He's calling you that? Not his name. Okay. Genevieve?
Genevieve.
I mean, that's,
it wasn't.
How's that bad, though? It's not like
no, it was
Jeffy.
great.
Jeffy is like derogatory.
No,
Whenever he's like, you're my queen.
Yeah. No, it was good. People.
He was obsessed.
He was. Clearly. But I too am now Jennifer instead of Jenny or Jen. So I think it adds I guess more than just a syllable.
There's a couple reasons. I added that because, well, it's been added for a lot of reasons, but as an adult, I needed something more than, my parents they got really lazy with the name.
We are recording.
Someone just went, let's name him Jeff, right on top of Smith. Let's just do that. That
I know,
worked out
because there's, they wouldn't let you leave the hospital without a name.
Yeah, and it was like,
Okay, what's your middle name?
Alan. So they really just reached out into all sorts
Jeff
of crazy.
L. Smith.
It's like literally, it was like Red Book's names of the years in 19 whatever, right?
What do you want to bet that one of the interns' name was Jeff and the doctor's name was Al?
Or the milkman.
Or Daddy. You're not named after your dad. You're not a junior.
No, my dad's name was Clayton, so at least that would have been kind of interesting. Jeff?
I like Jeffrey.
Try to get a bank account or a hotel room or anything with what's your name?
Smith.
Oh, it's Jeff Smith.
Sounds like John Smith.
Every time. Well, that's not your name.
Right.
Because it's a fake off. It's John Smith. Right?
It is.
So I added the re to try to be adult.
Right.
And try to separate myself from the torture of the youth
of
Jiffy.
Or you could make the Jeffrey Allen Smith.
I've done that. I've gone with that.
Yeah.
I own
that
Jeffrey
actually.
I went with JeffreyAllenSmith.com, or and then I went with Jazz Drummer JAS as a play. So Jazz Drummer. So I have actually riffed into using the full name because there are a lot of Jeff Smiths out there, and one just happens to be a pedophile cook or chef. I remember he got in trouble, and so people look up your name.
You want to pump up that Allen part.
You just want to distance yourself.
Right.
And there are a lot of Jeffrey Allen Smiths too. So
my
it's
goodness.
Kind of a thing,
All right, look at camera 2. We are going to begin our part 2 of the very first Soma Show podcast. We've come a long way since part 1 in terms of cameras and etc.
You've come a long way from. This started out as a typewriter and a Kodak Polaroid. And
exactly.
Look at you now, man.
I had a cave wall and a charcoal stick, and now I have a real camera.
It looks like you hooked up with some people who know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of know what they're doing, but this looks great.
Right. So thank you very much for your patience, or not patience, tenacity. Let's just say tenacity. Sticking with me, helping me out with this gear. This is one of the things Jeffrey does, people. So this is part 2. In part 1, we kind of went over the last 20 years, probably. And in this part, I'd love to go over the before and what comes next. If that's cool with you.
It's fine with me. For the people who don't know me and never will.
Well, maybe they will when they find out what
they might.
If you're patient.
I think some of the most interesting people are the people who don't know. So.
Right, exactly. And that's what this is all about, digging into the creativity of each amazing individual.
What does Paul McCartney have to say?
I don't know. He's next. And Birdie.
We already know enough about these people.
Right, that's true.
That's the other thing, right? And then it's like, how can you relate to that?
Right. But we don't know enough about you.
Do you really? Because I seek out people's stories, people I don't know, because most of the time you can relate to them.
Right.
They're going through the same. Not to say that Paul McCartney, that people don't go through the same struggles, but they have different types of struggles and different ways of handling the struggles.
Well, I think we can listen and maybe hear and learn from someone who we can relate to a little bit more.
It's accessible.
Yeah. You're accessible, hopefully.
I mean, I don't give out my phone number to everybody,
right?
But I'll talk to
you. Don't want to be too easy.
I'll talk to anybody who has a pulse.
This should probably be facing more towards you. Here, let's move your coffee.
You
Let's
can
move this a little.
post-production. You just every time I speak, you'll just normalize the
Okay.
sound.
Oh, damn it. Now you got to show me how that's done.
You have the tools, you
So
have
let's
all
go
the tools.
back to the beginning. We've talked about this before.
The naming of myself.
No, we're going to skip the naming
Okay.
because we don't know what was going on with your parents. We have a friend called Kris Kringle, so, I mean, it could be
This
worse.
is the problem
but-
I have. Like, that's a cool name. Now, he got punished for it as a child, but now
Right.
it's so cool. And I'm like, I can't sit next to Chris.
Right.
He's got this cool name, and then
Jeffrey Allen.
then we
Smith.
put my name next to it on some pet project we do together, and it's
Mhm.
like afterthought.
How about J. Allen Smith?
I thought of that, like J apostrophe Allen, Jean, like almost French. I'm half French,
Oh,
so I could kind of play on that, right?
yeah.
Or J-Al, J-A-L.
Yeah, do a-
like J.
Put an umlaut over it.
Yeah. We'll come.
Joao.
We'll chalkboard
Joao.
that. We'll chalkboard that.
Okay, we'll chalkboard that. Oh, that's true. We could put your whole list of
Future names.
J. Allen.
Jeffrey
We have-
Part 3.
J. L.
Oh, your chalk is
Gels.
breaking in.
Well, this is brand new.
I know.
We have Jeffel.
We're going to skip right over that.
You could be
Is that
an
Jeff or
artist.
no? It's J Fowl. J Fowl.
I don't know. That should be your logo, though.
That's pretty cool. Can you say
People at
that?
home can't see this, but this is
No,
really.
you should maybe.
I think it's actually the chalk that's the issue. All right.
Oh, I've been asking you to do a name logo for like 3 years, and now you do it on the chalkboard. I like that. Can you not erase
That's
that?
really cool.
Yeah, save that.
Okay.
Can you,
We'll
can you scan the chalkboard?
I'm gonna scan it. We'll feed that into the thing
I like it.
on the cave wall.
Wow. That's great. You want to drum up one we're gonna
We're
do?
gonna do it. Yeah, I know. See, this is when we should do it. It's like thinking on the fly.
Well, that's the problem is you're not thinking. Really.
Right. We're just
You're
we're just
literally reaching
jamming
into
and-
part of your
Right.
letting go, right?
Mhm.
That's why stuff comes up like that.
I like that. The JAS. That's pretty.
I like the
cool.
balance of it. I've actually
Yeah.
been trying to think of something like that to balance those out,
Uh-huh.
but never could. Everybody always does the do a little J, then you always do that big S because
Right.
that's. But I like
I
the
kind of
balance.
like
of
them the
this.
same, but
Oh,
with
it's
the
an
A
icon.
wanted in.
It looks
Yeah.
like a little icon. Well,
And the cross and the A will actually be the strike and the J.
Yep.
So we won't have two there.
like it.
Yeah. Okay. We're done.
Make that happen. That's been
Peace
good talking
out.
to you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Exactly. We're out of here.
You guys are a big
We
part of
got-
success of our little chalk show.
Without you, we couldn't have done this. It's the chalk show.
A Soma chalk show.
It's so a shit show.
Yeah. Could have gone to some shit show, so it's probably better that we went with the.
Okay, so mine can be.
Yes.
It's like
3 S's.
triple
We're done.
infinity. The show a shit show.
That's great. That's a great. We're done.
Right? We're done.
Soma
We're out
shit
of
show.
here.
We've got it. Or in a little poop emoji somewhere in there,
Yeah,
floating
exactly.
around like a little,
Little
like a
smiley face.
like an atom.
Right.
Float around.
Oh, an atom would be cool.
Well, no, it's not an atom. It's a poop emoji that's floating around like.
Like an atom.
Yeah, the shit show.
Get
Or a
it
fly.
now. It's a couple flies buzzing around. I don't know about this
We've
thing.
whiteboarded the hell out of this.
I
This is-
know
It's
exactly.
gonna work out.
We've taken as far as it can go. Jeffrey, tell me about your childhood.
Ugh.
No, but really, you know I'm a huge believer. I mean, we all are. We were all programmed early on.
we
Before
were
6.
we were in dev early.
We were. Like
That's good.
how did that shape? I mean, I know you lead with it is my perception that you lead with humor.
Mm.
I mean, I think it's healthy. Maybe it covers something. It certainly usually makes things better, but
It's a middle
where did
child
that
thing.
come from? Middle child, okay.
I mean, I'm not an absolute middle child because there's 4 of us, and
Mm-hmm.
so myself and a next sister.
Even that you had to share.
Even then, I got pushed out of the. You know,
You're the older
here's how
middle.
it goes down in my mind as a child. There was my brother, who was the first child.
Uh-huh.
All the attention, boo boo boo, always the most precious.
Right.
Then there's me, second child, and it's another son.
Oh, okay. I've got to
gears.
try harder here.
So we have another one. Oh, it's the first girl.
Oh, so
Very
she
special.
got first girl.
And then we have the last child.
Youngest.
So everybody's special, but there's just me sitting there going, you're not special. They had one of you already. You were a boy. You're just a second boy. You already, and then
So did you act out to stand out, or did you overstrive to
I
stand out?
did not act out. I thought, no, if anything, I didn't. I acted in. Like I tried to be the good child. I'm not saying I was like a great, like I didn't cause problems. I'm not saying that, but that was never my thing. I never was out to act out. I think if I acted out, it was in trying to overachieve, to try to do things. And it wasn't just from being a middle child. It was also the aspect that we moved around a lot. So I was always an outsider. I think we added this up. I think by the time I was 5 to when I graduated high school, we had moved nearly 15 times. So
Holy
if you break
shit.
that down, that's barely a year and some before you're moving. And when that happens, you're always an outsider going into a new world. So I lived in, from Wisconsin all the way to Michigan, all the way down south, and I finished up in Mississippi. Quite a vast array. And later in life that was a great thing. But I guess when you add up already feeling this middle child thing, whatever I had going on in my head, and always being an outsider, I think it just added up to me going, I just need to be good at something to stand out.
Right.
Whether it was sports, I always tried to overachieve, and I did well in sports. I always excelled and always made sure to try to be the best at it. And then music came along, and then that was the thing. I had to be really good at it.
So did you play drums first? Or have you played many an instrument?
Well, interestingly, my dad got us going in Pee Wee baseball. The coaching dad's kid. So I was dad's son on the team, which is not a lot of fun, by the way. I can
Maybe
tell
when
you
you were really
stories.
little.
Oof.
Not even?
No, I started at 6 with my dad coaching, and my dad was, first of all, to set him up, he was a jarhead. He was a Marine, and a really good one. So, he had his thoughts. And no, he was a loving dad, but he was very, man.
Yeah.
And I was 6, and so I got into sports because he was into sports, and I thought, my dad teaching. I love that, and I loved him doing that, but to get connected and to feel the approval or whatever it was, and I enjoyed the sport too. But there were times, I remember being like 7, and I remember running bases. My dad we're out practicing. And I wasn't a very fast runner. I might have been a little bit of a husky child, a little bit overweight. And not at all self-conscious about it.
No, never even.
I was slow. But I remember rounding second base and hearing this loud voice yelling across the diamond with all these kids, telling me that I was so slow, I was slower than a calendar.
Oh.
And I'm like, now at the time I really didn't understand the connection to the calendar. I had to go home and ask my mom, what did this mean? And of course she's like, what the hell's going on at these practices that you're torturing my
Way
son?
to pump a kid up.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's like, you're slower than a calendar. And I'm like, all right. So and you can see it stuck with me. How many years later that has registered with me.
Right. It's one of the memories that kind of made that impression.
Yeah, you're already self-conscious, and here's your dad's the one who's like laying it out. Now, I know he meant it in jest. He wasn't trying to punish me in front of people.
Right.
But that's the unfortunate thing. We get disconnected as adults about what children see in their eyes versus whatever. I can laugh about it now, but at the time, I was like...
You're like, I know this isn't good, Mom, but can you explain exactly how not good it is?
But it was like all those things of wanting to excel, and now it turned out my dad also played drums, so I could see where I'm trying to follow my dad because I idolized him, and I still do. And I did enjoy that, and I had other relatives who actually play drums too, mostly on the side. They didn't really do anything serious with it. But it interests me. They had stuff laying around. I like to play with it. I went with it, and at a very young age, I started the band program, carrying a drum on the bus every day, the whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, it was terrible in a way, but I didn't think it was terrible. I'm like, this is great. I get to bring my drums home.
Right.
It was hard to carry everything, but you did all that. It was awkward. But every day you bring it home, you practice. And my mom and dad were so great about it. They were like,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't care about the noise. You know, like,
Mhm.
just go in the other room.
So they really fostered that.
They were very supportive.
Okay.
And they have to be, because nobody can truly excel without some support in that.
Right.
Especially as a drummer, because you can't run from that noise. But
Yeah, back in that day, it wasn't like the quiet drums that you can.
I played baseball every year all the way up from first year in college. I loved it.
Mhm.
I wanted to be a pro ball player at one point. I thought that'd be great. Looked at the numbers, looked at my ability, and went, "That's probably not going to happen for me." And
You were faster than a calendar by then.
by then I was actually really good.
Mhm.
But I was excelling more in music.
Right.
And by the time I'd gotten to be a senior in high school, I traveled to Europe for a summer playing in the National Symphony and done these things.
Mhm.
Played for the president, did all these things, Carnegie Hall. So I realized, and I was getting scholarship offers from a lot of the universities, and I'm
Okay.
like, this seems like the path for me.
Seemed like the lighter.
Yeah.
The lighter.
But I had gone into music and excelled hard at music because I loved it, but I
Mhm.
also realized the attention it was getting me
Right.
in school with other students.
Well, and chicks love drummers, right? First
yeah, I
and
guess.
foremost.
I didn't really reap the benefit of that, but yeah, I guess they do.
Well, you always said it was is it the lead guitarist?
Well, yeah, they always seem to do.
Okay.
It's always the lead guitarist.
The singer.
Yeah, the singer. And like in case of John Mayer, both. It's
Oh, there you go.
That was a double whammy. No wonder
Right,
he does okay
exactly.
with the chicks. Meanwhile, and I keep in mind the kind of drumming I was doing was snare drumming, drum corps drumming, orchestra drumming.
Mhm.
But I remember even in high school, people I didn't grow up with in a small southern town,
Mhm.
how they were really supportive of it, and they were
Mhm.
really drawn to that success, a lot of them, and I thought that was really kind of cool.
Mhm.
And it really helped me bridge some gaps with people that I did not grow up with,
Right.
in a very weird way.
Yeah, the drum is the heartbeat, I think. I mean, you can have a band just of drums. I guess guitar too, probably. Piano stands alone.
Well, you do have, I mean, there is some of that. You go to Scotland, or you have these drum and fife
Mhm.
corps and stuff like that, I suppose. But as far as a
In
regular,
Africa, it's all drum. It's all percussion.
well, yeah, I mean, it's all, and that's a whole other story, right? That's
Mhm.
hand drums, and I mean,
So what was
percussion's
your-
so vast. I mean,
Right, that's
well,
true. Yeah, it's like saying language.
Yeah,
Yeah, what language?
and
What?
piano's a percussive instrument.
Mhm. As for Dad. So what was your progression from high school to? Did you go to school then in the South or in the what we call
For
it?
after high school,
Mhm.
yeah. So I had music scholarships from Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Iowa, some Big Ten schools, and oddly my parents moved back up. They waited for me to graduate high school.
Mhm.
I ended up in a high school program in the middle of nowhere, but just happened. I just fate. I moved to this Mississippi town of like 20,000 people,
Mhm.
out in the middle of nowhere, and you would think this is going to be a terrible music program. But the same year I got there's a freshman.
Mhm.
They hired a new band director, Johnny Mack, who was a drummer.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they come and it's a horn player who just happens to know about the drums. This guy
Mhm.
came as a drummer, happens to play a horn. So I lucked out. This guy was a phenomenal drummer, and he took me under. And the more I showed
Wow.
interest, the more he pushed. And for 4 years, and so my parents we did move in that time, but I moved out of the district, and they drove me to school every day out
Wow.
of town. I had to pay to do it.
Mhm.
But he was such a good instructor, and I was in such a good place. It's like, it happens with sports people to do that.
Sure.
So instead of going to this school, I went back out to the county, and I'm glad I did it, and that was great. And then
Mhm.
at the end, I chose to go to school in Mississippi for a year, but my parents moved. I learned quickly after about a year in school that I don't want to major in music.
Okay.
I wasn't showing up. I wasn't showing interest.
Mhm.
I realized that's not what I enjoyed about it. I didn't want to be a teacher,
Mhm.
which is what most people go to school to be, and I think that's great. I
Mhm.
just had no desire for it. So eventually I lost the scholarship,
Mhm.
and I had to make a decision. So then I packed up and moved back up here.
Okay.
After how many years of 20 some years of never being. I was 20 years almost.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I moved back to Wisconsin. I don't know. What's that about?
Yeah.
You know? So, from the quick shot from there was I needed to figure out what I was going to do. I had out of state, so I worked at a shipping dock at Coast Distribution. You know, all the falls at the time. I don't know if they're still there or not. Working docks will get you motivated.
Mhm.
And I waited for my time, and then I went to UW Milwaukee here, business school. I'm like, well, I love music, but I should get a business degree or something.
Right.
So I did that.
You already play, now that's the business aspect of it.
Yeah.
Okay. How did that serve you think?
I think it was great because it balanced out a lot of where my head was at with music, and I love that, but I had no plan.
Right.
So my dad was, he worked in production, manufacturing. I thought that's interesting. I don't know what I want to do with it, but I liked problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up getting degrees in marketing and in operation management just to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing was interesting
Mm-hmm.
because it had a lot of psychological aspects to it, and I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Got out, I'm like, what am I going to do with these degrees? Because I don't want to work in an office. Turns out that wasn't something I wanted to do. And there's fate again. A friend of mine that I knew forever, who also was part of the music growing up, where I met, was into animals and raising them, working at zoos. And he's like, hey man, I mean, I'm cutting out a lot of meat here, but basically he's like, hey, you want to start a llama farm?
And here's the llama
And
farm
I'm like
check.
looking at my degrees and I'm looking at him like, yeah, you bet. Let's do it.
I love that because I've heard you say you were a llama farmer before, but I'm like wondering where is this going to fit in exactly?
How the hell is this segue? And it is a weird, like it just, like you're just going.
Just fell in, yeah.
And literally like a month after I graduated, you know, this kind of comes to light. And I had been interviewing for jobs and hating every one of them. I'm like,
Right.
I do not want to do anything that I don't want to do this shit.
Mm-hmm.
I respect it, but I don't want to do it. And I'm like, let's do it. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
My mom was so mad.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I
But-
mad because of fear, because what are you doing?
Right.
You just graduated with these degrees. I had a job offer for the auto industry in Detroit, which looking back now, I realize that wasn't as great as it sounded.
Right. Well, I think parents, I try not to, and it's horrible. You have expectations, or you see how good your kid is, something, and you just kind of rest your, I guess, it's hopes, expectations, however you want to put it, accidentally. And then the llama farming comes along. And
Llama farming comes
how
along.
can you?
How do you
can you say
quantify
no?
that? It's like, oh, we you know, these degrees, you got these degrees, you got these job offers,
Right.
they're offering you this money, but you want to start a llama farm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how is a parent supposed to quantify what is happening to their child right here? With
Right.
this decision is insanity to them, and quite honestly, it is insane. Why wouldn't? I mean, looking at it now, at the time, I'm like, no, this is perfectly normal. This is what
Right.
you would do. What are you talking about?
Right. Who
And
knows?
it's absolutely insane, and I'm glad I did it. So I don't even know how we did it. Cobbled the money together, and we rented a farm up in the Saukville area, and didn't even know Saukville existed, but we did it. We rented a place up there. There's 5 llamas out there. I think it started with like 5 llamas. I'm like, okay, now what?
Now what? Yeah.
And that's kind of what I had to figure out what to do with myself. I was that because I wasn't really. I love the animals, but I don't know anything about them. I didn't go to school. I don't know how to feed them. I don't know what they eat or what they
Wow.
birth. I didn't know anything about this stuff. That was his area. I had to find some usefulness and quickly realize you need to be able to run a business even at this level, especially if you want to grow, which means
So the business and marketing could come in
yeah,
there.
and that's where my aspect came in, which would have been marketing, which would have been in operations, record keeping for the animals, record keeping for the business, which means accounting. Oh, now we're going to get into accounting. How are we going to do that? And so there was a milk room in the barn, an old milk stanchions, and it was separate, all brick, and ripped all that out there, and we built an office in there, and that was my first office. I was in the barn, away from the house, I guess, and I sat out there hours in the middle of the night trying to figure out this new program called QuickBooks.
Ooh, yeah.
With an old CRT monitor that could AOL, gearing up, making that screeching noise. I kid you not.
Oh my God. So this was the beginning of your tech career.
Yeah, that was the beginning of it.
Okay.
I mean, I dabbled in a lot of it in the schools, like in the college. It was the Macs.
Okay.
Pushing the Macs hard. Macs had the run of it at the time.
Sure.
And I thought that's what you need to do, but I couldn't afford the Macs, and so got a cheaper little Windows computer with Windows probably 95 on it or whatever it was at the time. Well, it probably was 95, and loaded up QuickBooks. And I remember having to go check email and AOL and dial that up, and you'd hear that noise, and we didn't think anything of it. It was technology. It was great, and started.
That was
learning
the
all
sound of technology.
Yeah, and I mean, we all do this, right? We look back, and it was really not great times. I look back and go, that was such a great time. Like you look back at it now and go, God, it's so awesome. Everything's in front of you, and you're learning, and you don't know what you don't know.
So it's that constant learning, and that's interesting because that's one of the things that stands out about you, and that, of course, I selfishly appreciate, is that you're always learning the next thing. I mean, technology-wise, I guess you have to, because it's changing so fast. But with what you're doing now with production, which we'll get into in a minute, or even then, it is fun. If you're learning and growing, you're alive.
Yeah, I was like learning, and then what I realized is I really loved problem solving through tech. Like I really got into writing, like, oh, well, we fast 2 years, we've got more animals, we need more space, we buy a farm up in Saukville.
Okay.
I said Saukville, originally the first place was in Cedarburg, actually. And then we moved out to Saukville, 20 acres, bought that farm. Within a couple of years, we're talking 200 animals. And it isn't just llamas, it's alpacas. Eventually, there's camels.
You had camels?
Shetland sheeps. There's hundreds and hundreds of animals. Yeah, we had camels, the dromedaries, Bactrians, had 2 humps.
You had both.
Yeah, both. They're all in the camelid family.
Right. So is this primarily for wool and also for entertainment for people? Or
no, don't do entertainment. We didn't do rides. We weren't in any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It was really about, that level of breeding stock, of which my partner, Larry, was in charge of all that. He's one of the best at putting together the best wool. I mean, he had the best fiber in the country. And so he was, you can, if you're really good at understanding how to breed these animals and cross them and really get there's different types of fibers for everything. There's,
right.
Even the alpaca families, you have wakunas, which are your puffier ones, and you have the suris, which are the silky dreadlock ones. But you can do that with the llamas too. You can really breed a certain silky fiber or different types of things.
So were you finding the end users, and he was blending the animals so that you would match up? Were you also marketing?
We were never really
you?
into selling the fiber. That wasn't our market. We were selling breeding stock to people who wanted to do that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So really, it's like the origin of the market.
Wonderful.
Was there.
So you were just concentrating on.
Our thing was on building the best structured animal,
beautiful,
with the best
healthy.
fiber, long necks, presented well, show animals, which is also another aspect of trying to gear the market into a way. So if you have animals that are winning and they're presenting because of the structure, the length of the body, the length of the, how they look, plus they're carrying a certain type of fiber, you obviously want to put that out there. And as your animals, and we did, we won a lot of nationals. We would win those. There's a little farm up there in Saukville, and then with that fiber, and that would start to dictate the market a lot of times. And so other people that wanted to enter in would say, well, we're looking for this type of fiber, this type of animal. We'd like to raise this fiber to sell to these co-ops.
Okay.
And so they would. But we didn't really do that. We would breed at the origin really, and try to create the breeding stock that people wanted. And now everybody else has their ideas, but we went with it, what we had, and Larry tapped into a vein that really worked. And and then bloodlines became an issue after a while because they had closed off importations for so long in this country, especially in the alpaca area. So we actually went down to La Paz, and we went to the mountains and spent a couple of weeks, and we'd pick out animals to import when they allowed it. We were the only farm in the country that was allowed to import twice into different veins, and that was really interesting. It's hard, it's stressful, but you need you can't just walk around with animal knowledge and pull this off. You're going to have to hire the resource of somebody who understands business, or
Right.
you're going to have to do it in-house. And I was doing a lot of this, faking it.
So you guys were a good partnership because you could.
It was a lot of complement partnership stuff, for sure. I mean, there was some crossover stuff, but I was more into like, okay, well, we got a lot of information. And I really like working with databases. Let's get some database going. So I learned how to do all that kind of things. And then websites were becoming a thing. So I started dabbling into like the first of website presence going. And that was just, looking back, how awful that was. That was just...
That'd be fun to see your first website.
I mean, I don't know if I have it anymore, but I mean, that was basically HTML code on WordPad. I mean, it was such a raw presentation of how it was done. But
So was your website the first website you designed?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
And then when did you start doing that for other people? And were you drumming this whole time?
No, drumming. I was 24/7.
Okay.
You had to be involved.
So
with as
that
many
was
animals.
back burner. The tech was starting up. The
Yeah, this
websites
was all
were
through
starting
the
up.
'90s.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, everything was peaking in the late '90s for what we were doing there. I was young. I was in my 20s. And faking it till you're making it.
Sure.
But I was learning a lot.
I'm still doing that.
Oh yeah, you gotta fake everything.
And I'm like a little past 20s.
I think that's the thing. I think people, we're all going to school every day, and we're in a world now where you can do that. I figured out even back then with AOL, I'm like, there's knowledge out here. I can get online, and I know it's raw and young, but you can find some answers out here or connect with people, and I use that to my advantage.
At least find the people.
Yeah.
Now we have the beauty of YouTube where everyone shares so much.
I mean, now it's just heightened with Google's reach and YouTube's massive library. It's endless. I mean, I didn't have that kind of access back then, but I realized there was still some things going on. Even way back then, there was answers.
So building off that now, as you're researching and learning, and you're like, whatever, this is easy. I've noticed that about you. I'll be like freaking out about something, and you'll be, let's just find this out. And I just think you know everything, but you just know how to access
I
it.
laugh because I never used to be that calm about it, but late in the game when I realized I was going to exit out of the animal stuff and I was looking at getting back into music and eventually did, I was also dabbling with some guys about a tech company, which I ended up owning, and I didn't mean to. They started it, but they all bailed and I was left, so it was me. Because again, life is weird.
Yeah.
And one of the guys eventually I ended up getting involved with, his friend is Russ, and he's from Moscow. He now lives here full time, works with Amazon, but he would always be my tech guy, and I'd be like having breakdowns going, can we do this? I don't know if we can do this. And he's always answered was, it's okay. It's just code.
It's just code.
It's just code.
Yeah.
And
like
he's so
that.
calm and so like, we take care of it. It's just code.
It's going to be.
Russians are so great at that because they have nothing to work with.
Yeah.
So they will bootstrap everything together. And code, hardware, they don't care. They're just so great at like, it's fine. We get it together.
Yeah. We has real problems before.
And I love that demeanor. I still can't do that because I'm so anxious about everything. But
right.
I thought that's a great way to handle life.
That's very cool.
But nowadays, you're right. But there's almost too many answers, and you can get into this anxiety of so many points of view and opinions that you're paralyzed by analysis.
Right.
And so you're like, I don't know if should I go on this path? This guy's great too. This guy's great too. And I don't know. I mean,
that's what's nice about having you in my life. But really, like having people being surrounded by your network, right? Where yes, we can always access the deep, vast, wonderful, confusing pit of YouTube, and maybe more quickly we can access, our friends who are pretty damn, spectacular in their area or areas.
I find people like that too, as much as I can, to say, man, I could go down the rabbit hole of YouTube and research and anxiety. Right. Could you just kind of cut through the noise? Now, I do that knowing that they have their own bias and they have whittled out things for their own reasons. There's always a risk there because they may have decided to go down a path, and part of the equation of that they whittle out might have been something useful to you. but it wasn't part of their equation. But that's the compromise, right?
Right.
So I don't mind doing that. Like if you come to me, I will give you my opinion. Clearly has my bias, which is built on experience or just limited amount of time and of experience. Because you have to choose a path.
Right.
I mean,
So either
there are people
research
who
your
know
own
a little about everything, and they can sit there and be a streamer who's like, well, today we're going to look at this camera or this mic. That's fantastic. But if you want to get stuff done, you can't live in that world. You can't be a hobbyist. And so I will give you what I know at the time, and it could change over time. You know, but this is how I'm getting it done.
Right.
If you want to get it done and you want to spend $8 million, I can probably get you. And if you want to spend $8 million, I'm probably not your guy.
No.
Because you probably want to go to an agency with lots of guys with lots of different opinions.
Yeah.
You know, at that point, beyond your scope.
So the project that I am most excited about to work on with you have already done now with James Payne. And I think that's worth talking about for sure, because it's another one of these things where you're a drummer, he's a drummer, everyone takes drum lessons, and you build websites. And so I'm just setting this up quickly for those that don't understand, you know, just skip. Yeah, I'm scaffolding. I like that. Okay. There's some structure behind the story. So you're now putting together something for a professional drummer who's extremely driven, who already has YouTube presence, and you're going to create something that, if you, correct me if I'm wrong, if you knew what it would entail before, you probably wouldn't have started out.
That's like most things.
Like okay.
Laws or music.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
So run me through briefly what you did for him and what that kind of means for the future, because with COVID, obviously, that we talked about last time, the drumming just, you know, you'll keep drumming, but professionally right now it's just...
There's no
gigs or anything. And so you kind of opened up, you know, gotten into producing. And
we
so
discussed
tell me about
it. I think
that.
last time we discussed our talk, we talked about how we played the gig in New York. That was it. And I haven't even seen these people since then, right? We were on a great gig, a theater show. Next thing is like, see ya. And it's almost a year now. God, we may be at a year almost.
We're almost at a year.
Coming up this next weekend will be a year.
Yeah.
And I haven't even seen these people. And much less play a gig. So around summer, I realized, well, this isn't going away. We have no gigs. Website was weird. Like I was kind of doing the sites, but people didn't know where to put their money or their time, and people didn't seem to even have the ability to kind of think through. Like everybody was so scattered to sit and think about a project with all these unknowns. So everything was just putting out fires, and that was good business for a minute. Accommodate this restaurant for a minute, get to the curbside delivery. Okay, and then all of a sudden nothing, like crickets, like there's no business. And I'm like, well, this is not gonna work. So I sat around in my funk going, what am I gonna do? Like I practice a little more, that's great, but and then I started, weirdly, how this happened was I started kind of just gaming here and there, because I hadn't gamed since I was a kid. And I got into a game called Sea of Thieves, and I think I told you I met a guy from France on there, and then we became friends and started playing. And to get better, I started watching Twitch. I haven't been invested in Twitch much, just gaming. And I didn't care about the games. What I fell in love with was the production quality. I'm like, how are they doing this? And then I realized the cross-content that was happening between these live streams and what was happening on YouTube. Pardon me while we turn off this scam call from Indiana from Jim about my warranty. And so I started watching this content creation with Twitch and stuff that's recorded, stuff that's live, and how it was interplayed. And I'm like, God, this is fascinating. And I see people are making a living on it. And I also see everything's becoming remote, and it's pushing people into home studios and cameras and audio issues. And I'm like, this could be fun. I don't know anything. I don't know much about it, which means immediately I'm like, I want to learn this. And then B, there might be a way to use this to solve problems and maybe make a couple of dollars and make a living, or add it to what I'm already doing somehow. I didn't really put it all together because I figure it doesn't really matter. Just take a step. And it's been a real joy to learn, frustrating at times, but I started going on that path. And then I had been working with James, as you said, for over a year, maybe two, not quite two, on a rather large lesson site of his, rather ambitious. I had no business taking this project on, in a way. It's safe to say, and he knows this. But I did, and just learned as I went.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about really e-commerce through online learning courses? No. Yeah, I do.
Right. I'll find out.
And then, of course, we hang up and we're like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Okay, let's figure this out. But we did it, and it's starting to grow roots, and we've got some updates coming. And short story on this is it's really been a great success for us, and the future looks fun and exciting, and we are going to incorporate the streaming aspects of it. And so I'm excited about taking all the stuff and amalgamating it into a universe. That'd be fun to do. So yeah, I mean, I had no idea what I was going to be doing with any of this stuff, and I think you got to kind of just do that. Like if you have an interest and no answer, and your other option is either to sit around and play video games all day or be depressed, and that happens, then you're best doing something positive.
Absolutely.
Learning something, and oh my God, turning that off.
Silence that beast. Well, you're always adding to your repertoire.
How do I turn this off?
How do I? Don't even say. How do I work this thing?
How do I work this thing?
I don't know how to work my phone.
You know what? I probably should just take a look and make sure this is an emergency.
Yes, that's fine.
We'll cut this.
I'll just talk for a while. Oh no, we're leaving this in. I don't edit.
You don't edit?
No.
You're lazy.
I'm a squirrel. This is all 100% raw, excellent material.
I don't know these. I don't know about you, but I'm getting just tons of phone calls lately since COVID. Obviously scams.
Right.
My warranty, my computer's infected.
Right.
And lately there was one about how a card was used on a car rental by two kingpins from drug kingpins from Mexico. The car was found, and and so you can either settle up with us or you're in trouble, sir. I'm like,
you're like, I'm sorry, I have a degree.
I'm like
in
eating
bullshit.
lunch, listening to the script. I'm like, this is
This is
fascinating.
awesome.
Yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, I know. I love it when someone from India is telling you that they're from Social Security and that I need to do things.
No, not just from Social Security. I'm from Social Security, DEA, FDA, school board. I have a school board license. You're in trouble with
and
PTA.
I'm the sheriff.
Yeah, jeez, come on, man. It's just,
you are going to detention.
I literally asked a guy one time, as he's giving me all the spin down, and I'm like, I gotta ask you, Steve. I think that was his name. I was like,
and that's not your real name.
Steve from India. I was like, does this work? Does it work for you? He's like, yes, it does.
So how many times of 100 do you think?
Of 100, does it work for these guys?
Yeah. 4?
Well, I'd be guessing, but I bet it's higher.
Really? Do you think it's predominantly the elderly?
Yeah.
Because you don't get out much. You think this must be.
I think it's the elderly, and sadly, I think you start seeing it's actually going to happen to a lot of younger people. It's odd. You wouldn't think that would be the case, but
we're not discerning, maybe, anymore.
I'm talking even younger. I'm talking 20s and younger.
Yeah.
I think that there's just such an ease of what's happening that they're not. I don't know. I'm just
not
noticing
enough
some
experience.
things. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of you wouldn't think that I would be helping 16, 18-year-olds set up their streaming computers.
Right?
They do not know how to do it. And I talked to them, and they're smart kids. It's just that there's a difference between when we were working with this stuff. First of all, we work with desktops that you could take apart, put new things in. I tinkered all the time, putting in cards, testing things out, getting into the guts, and upgrading. And so we did that. We did it with software too, always having to upgrade and do things kind of on our own to handicap. We were always handicapped how to do things. It was all new. But I think what happened is we ended up building a lot of these things so well, and we ended up building them so small. For example, let's take the iPhone or a Mac laptop. You're not going to get in there and tinker with these things. They're made so you don't have to tinker with the software, really, right? They call it idiot-proof. So for the most part, it's kind of plug and play, and that's a great thing. I'm not saying it's not, but what happened is people know how to consume the use of them, but they don't know how to really fix.
Well, and they're not interested in it.
No, maybe they shouldn't be, and that's not a judgment thing. It's just the way it evolved, and
Right.
so now kids, we're so used to kids, we're tearing it apart and
Mm-hmm.
fixing things, and some kids still do, but for the most part, kids don't do that.
Right.
They have no idea, and it's shocking to me in a
Well,
way.
I've even found my kids, awesome kids, but they will ask me a question that will take me as long to research it to figure it out, and I realize that's on me, than them, and they're supposed to be the ones with the pliable, flexible minds, understanding the tech better, understanding the TikTok and the and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you know how to use
There's
the
a
Google
skill.
machine.
I don't know. This seems to be. I don't say it's universal, but I'm hearing more of it. And you gotta wonder. I mean, I know we're going off into a tangent, but you gotta wonder if problem-solving skills, when it's all about a Google
I think that's what it
or
is.
YouTube, and when you have to go to a library physically, go through
Right.
that stupid Dewey Decimal System, which makes no sense whatsoever.
I still
And
can't
go
do
through that. I'm not saying it's a better system. We need to go back to it. That's
No,
that's not,
but maybe because
but I think
it
there's
was
a problem-solving
so difficult.
aspect. to it.
Exactly. We used to, like, even still, if I want to build something, I try and first build it with what's here, because I understand going to the store, like, we want to shorten the process. But if you come back from our day, when you had to build things or build your computer or, create something the hard way, this doesn't seem like that much work. And I think for a lot of people now, they might understand it once it's all put together, but I kind of feel like the problem solving is de-evolving.
Yeah, it is. Well, if you think about that, you said something.
People
I think
aren't
there's such a
figuring it out.
difference. There's a difference in problem solving with typing something into this bland search box, as opposed to the journey of finding pieces and putting them together, and that physical value of that tactile value of modeling up. Okay, you're trying things out, and you have a tangible thing. I think that's such a different type of problem solving, or even going and getting an encyclopedia at the library, which is so archaic and weird when you think about it, to look up
Might be
something.
good for people to do.
I think it's probably good, but I can see where, you want me to get on Google? It's so boring. Because I gotta go on Google, I gotta type in a thing, and I gotta read all the stuff and click the links, and it's boring. You know why? Because it's reading. And so I think that it's kind of boring. Like, it's not, there's no physical, you just hold the phone. And then here's the other thing you gotta think with these kids. I'm looking at Google, what's happening as I'm researching? I'm getting a notification on TikTok. I'm getting a distraction from Facebook. Whatever. And I see other things that are more fun to do. This is not fun. I would just give me the answer.
Just give me the answer.
Just give me the answer. We'll be good here.
Right.
Back away.
Right.
And I we can't blame the
No, I'm not
generation that's
blaming
been
them.
left with that. But it's. I don't think it's a good thing.
No. And I think that's why when I get questions, and bless you for not making me wait too long when I ask questions, because sometimes, yes, you need to know right away, and you want to know quickly, and you want to also, like, you've gone through these trials and tribulations, of course, you're the professional here, I'm coming to you. I can't treat my kids that way.
No.
So that's on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there we all have friends like that, and we all help each other out, but I think sometimes it's that process that it sucks in the beginning, but it can be so rewarding.
It is, but I think if you don't learn that there's a reward for the journey, I think that gets tougher later in life, and I do worry that we're setting up kids to not experience that and not understand that there is a reward for that.
Well, and when challenge comes...
Beyond the consequences of not being able to do it.
Right. Yeah, challenges don't need to be shied away from.
Well, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, just
Then
tackle
sometimes
it.
you gotta go step right through it, and you gotta...
Because Mommy or Jeffrey will not be here all the time, or your teacher, or... I don't know.
Okay, everybody over 20 died from the epidemic. How are you growing corn to eat? No.
I know. That's true.
Google's not up? I don't know. I mean, that's a very dramatic... everybody runs into
that was
extreme,
one of my biggest concerns at the beginning of COVID, is we all got so instantly completely reliant on the internet. You know, everyone was having meetings at home. I switched to live presentations. I was working on my computer nonstop. Like, what if at that point the internet went down? Like,
it did for some people.
Yeah, well, if it went down, you know, countrywide, worldwide, we would just
attack or something.
Spiral out.
Well, it's going to happen. I mean, I want to get into all this dark. I mean, at some point, let's be honest, something's going to happen to a grid or something where it's going to really knock big sections out, and we're going to really be left with what that is going to feel like.
The dark ages, probably, because we have no hard information.
And maybe it's only short term, but even a short term blip on that, and people lose their minds when it goes out for 10 minutes, and then you're trying to watch Netflix, and they come on.
Right,
you know,
The Mandalorian.
Mandalorian.
Like, I need that fixed.
So if
imagine if your bank accounts disappear and you don't have a home title anymore, and you don't have a.
Well,
I don't know. I'm digressing.
Digital record keeping is a whole another nugget of. We can get into a whole podcast of how scary all this stuff can be, from that to deep faking and to all this stuff, video. There's a lot of things to keep ourselves up at night.
To be terrified of.
I mean, I try to use, to segue, I try to use the technology in a positive way. And through COVID, because you couldn't do a whole lot except binge, and I can only do so much of that, I realized that the only thing that kind of kept me going was learning. Like, learning kind of kept me not thinking about stuff that was going to draw me into anxiety or depression, which would have been easy to do. And so I needed that. So thank God it was there for me to kind of tap into, and also, I can also use this. This is great. Now, I still feel like, other than teaching people, I don't know, we talked off camera about some plans and some ideas. I do have some things cooking.
Yeah, tell me about that, just so I'm not in the fetal position worrying about my digital data being erased.
Yeah,
you talk about something positive.
I don't think you want to go down to your birth certificate being just gone.
Yes, no, that's not.
I think we got bigger problems if that happens, but okay. What are my plans?
Yeah, what are you up to now? I mean, I'm baiting a little bit because I know you're producing, and this is very exciting because you're working essentially with drummers.
I am. I mean,
from far away, and you're creating.
So oddly enough, my website's more from animal type stuff years ago to mostly musicians. And I mean, my most recent ones have been drummers. So David Stanek, who's a crazy good drummer out of the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. He's with PASIC, which is percussion arts and national group, world group. They have an annual thing, and he's fantastic. And then Bruce Becker, I think I mentioned to you, I took lessons from for years, and he's a Freddie Gruber disciple. And if people don't know him, then I guess they hung out with Buddy Rich. That helps anybody, but there's trees in the drum world of different types of techniques, and the teachers who carry that technique. Okay. And I would say right now, Freddie Gruber had a main vein and a style, and Bruce Becker would be, I guess right now, to me and to many, the voice of that technique. Okay. And so to take lessons from him and to also work with him and touch on that. And then James, different type of animal. He is now with a big band out of Italy called Cataclysm, and he's into metal drumming, I guess you'd want to call it, and it's incredible stuff. And so I've been working with him. So yeah, a lot of drummers. Yeah. With Bruce, what we're working on is remote producing his webinars. He's doing master classes, which is really cool, and of course live stuff. Live stuff. So I'm using the tools that we have, and I'm still learning about it. But we're using this technology to do like TV broadcast. We'll bring it all in to take it in, mix it up, and push it out to the airways from a central location. So he's not bending over trying to switch cameras and do his own themes and weird stuff. I can sit here in Milwaukee and I can...
You can make it look seamless.
I can look seamless and look a little more broadcasty. Yes. Okay. And so that's fun. I'm still learning on that, but we're using that as our trial balloons. And
that would be kind of the vein that's... Well, it's happening now, and it's probably going to have the widest value for other people and for you, utilizing you, working with you, because so much is done with remote collaboration now. And to make that polish, for me, I mean, I know I kind of just jumped in with your help, and every time you can get a tool, you add to it. But it does add legitimacy when you have kind of a polished look, or to add to your content, which is, of value. So is it reasonable to say, like, if people want to put on some sort of, not extravaganza, but like you're doing with Bruce, a teaching webinar, or maybe something, with multiple cameras, multiple angles. You're making sure that people can view it. You're making sure that people can buy it off the website. You're the hub, really.
Yeah, I mean, with the people I'm working with right now, I am the hub, and then I'm kind of leaning on them to be patient as I learn my role in that, and so it's kind of everybody's winning a little bit here as we push along, and then I realize I think it's always going to be a learning curve. And you're right, we've getting that fine line of, is it good enough? Does it need to be more polished? If you have a webcam or a phone and you've got something to say, just say it, because you can always build after. Don't let that hold you back. There's a lot of value to getting moving, you know what I'm saying? Now, we all work at our own pace. I like to set things up a little bit more to jump in. Other people can jump in earlier. You were doing live, and we talked about it. I'm like the worst. You get out there and do your Facebook Lives. Don't worry about it. You did it. You jumped out there and did these things for a week. You got tons of them now, right? You didn't care. I'm like still put out my own, because I'm still noodling, right? That's always the way. The cobbler's chilling on everyone else's
stuff too. You're working on everyone else's stuff too. That's
the thing. The cobbler's children are the worst shoes. Yeah, so that's kind of what but I'm also still in that catch-up mode of trying to make sure I stay ahead of the tech enough that I can support the answers of people and what I'm trying to do. I'm getting to the point where that tipping point's happened, so I'm happy that I'm going, okay, this is a cherry on top. It's time to put out some of my own content, which I want to do. And really the point of that is, I don't really care if anybody watches it. I just want to do it because it gives me a proof of concept for things that I want to try to help other people do. So it's my own canvas.
And it is of such value. I mean, the things that, so Jeffrey and I, for everyone else, Jeff has done all my websites.
Yeah, that's right.
And
you're not a drummer, so that's
and I'm not a drummer. I'm artsy first, but yeah, check out thesomashow.com. He did a remarkable job with it. It's I think extremely useful, cool looking. It's seamless. And where was I? What were we talking about? I'm like off in La La Land. It's so pretty. I love it so much.
I think it was about just helping you out getting going. We were talking about the Facebook Live. You were doing that.
So, for instance, you're showing me, and we've met a lot, especially in the beginning of COVID, via either Skype or Hangouts or whatever it was. And we've got our two screens, and you're giving me a tutorial, and literally, it's just like, record that shit, because that is exactly the question. You explain it so well. I feel that's of huge value. And I think, yes, we're making a living, just like I'm doing the things to make a living, and we're learning and starting a new vein of, so you yourself, you're producing for other people. You're drumming up business for that, and that, by the way, is the name of your company. That's Drum Up Studio. That's an obvious. I'm plugging here because it's awesome. It's like, what do we need to do?
We're getting it moving.
Yes, exactly. I'm gonna leave that music on. It's kind of nice. It does. It's fitting. We're like segueing here, but I think. I'll always try and push you to get you out there as well.
Yeah. It's not the worst though. It's like, I'm really good at telling people, Jen, you're ready. Get it out there. And you've been so good about putting up with that. Meanwhile, I'm like, I'm not ready.
And you're giggling in the background. Holy shit, she's not ready at all. Oh my God.
But as long as someone's supporting you, but I think that's kind of how we are. And then I have people like yourself who are putting that back and saying, you should really put it out there. It's got me to the point where I'm right at the edge of doing that. I have a whiteboarding what I want to do now, and that's coming together really well. So I'm excited to do that. It's funny how we do this, right? We're like, we research all this stuff. We see these people with really good presentations in this and answers, and we think, why would people want another voice? But I think that's okay.
Yeah.
There are never enough voices. You find the people that want to listen. There's a way that I learn from people's presentations on, for example, on YouTube to explain things that spoke to me. You know, whether it was concise to the point and clear visual messaging.
So your learning style, yeah.
And that's my style, and I'm like, that would be the style I want to put out there. And I see that there is a need for that. I think people are doing a lot of this stuff to sell a product, because a lot of product companies will send these to people to influence. They'll put out this garbage review, which looks like a tutorial on a product they should not be pushing. It's terrible. And that's not what I want to do. I want to be able to say, oh, you want to be able to hook up your camera to have a nice quality, so you can do a high quality here's how
Something
here's
with
how
integrity,
here's how you can do it.
Let me save you 7 weeks.
I'll save you 7 weeks, because that's what it took me to figure it out. Because
So subscribe, bitches.
hit that sub button at the bottom, right? And I do that.
Because I'm about to say.
Then you gotta go like this. You gotta go. Be sure to hit that subscribe button.
That's right. That's what they all
You
say.
gotta have that down there.
Or I'm special. I have my icon up
If
here.
you want to see a related link,
I can't figure that stuff out at all.
really,
Well,
we'll figure it out.
I'm only like a couple days on YouTube, so.
Oh, you get all sorts of layers of things from
Learn
then you're
as we
trying to
go.
do overlays, and you're trying to make sure you get the lower third stuff coming, which is you're trying to get these branding things coming out. It's always something. And at some point, it slows down, and I think we're getting to that point as I look around your studio and I look around where I'm at. Things start to slow down. But let's just say someone new comes to you. You got to be careful, because you can overload them. There is a lot of detail here. And there are a lot of paths and a lot of ways to go. For me, I'm going to go the way that gets the work done, that you're not dumpster diving, but you're not paying for money for things you don't need, or overpaying for things that you do need.
And you'll get people up and running in a
I'll get you up
reasonable
and
amount of
running,
time.
and it's going to be something that can
and
be
then you
flexible.
grow.
Yeah, there's a middle ground here. There's no need to be all or nothing when you're buying equipment or trying to figure out what to use. Sometimes you need something that's perfectly free, which so many things are, honestly, like certain softwares. And then sometimes you're like, I got to buy the new lens. Now maybe you can buy it on eBay cheap or whatever, but there's a product that has to be bought new. I need that I can't buy that. But most things you can buy nowadays.
And each of your clients is different.
And
it's
everybody's
custom.
got a different use.
Right.
So
some people have money,
some people have money,
don't.
some people don't.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not going to fit the person who's going to come with crazy money, because that's going to be a need that I can't fulfill. That's just too much, right? You're going to be for somebody or a small company where they want to get a presence online from, I just need a one-shot webcam, high def, to get that out live, or I need to do something that I can also do on 4K to put on YouTube for building a channel. Okay. We'll get you into the lights. We'll get you into the
custom
audio.
setups, custom producing different things, and
how
then
can we do a video branding of yourself or whatever you want to do?
Yeah.
Like everybody's doing it. I mean, everybody's doing it.
No
we're all
pressure.
becoming freelancers in this world quickly now with COVID, and even people that aren't making money, they're just putting it out there to put it out there, and either hoping it pays a couple dollars, or they just have to do something, or they.
Well, and I think there's, that's a huge vein of my work, and it always has been. I try to support it with, the custom work, and the art that I sell. But a lot of, I think what it is it's our meaning, it's our purpose, being of value, putting things out there, and then if we can do that and get the message out, and then also, eventually monetize, or it's also bringing an awareness of what you can do.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, it's keeping our minds occupied. Yes, it's keeping us sharp. We're still learning. Yes, we're helping the greater good. And yes, it's, it can be a funnel for currency back.
Yeah.
So I think we're all one large organism.
It is. And I think where it gets tricky for me is it comes down to the identity of yourself. So, for a long time, well, let's say I got out of high school or whatever, at some point I get in the llama farm, and I'm the llama guy. People call me, oh, you're a llama guy. Okay, I'm a llama guy.
Llama.
Go to the class reunion, oh, you're a llama guy. But that's your identity, you go with it, you're all in.
Right.
And then you get back into music, and then for 20 years, oh, you're a drummer. Okay, that's what you do, and people get to know you as that. And you really feel that. I put the hours, the practice, the money, the investment, and I'm a drummer. And now we're in the COVID, and you're like, what is my identity here? Because this has changed to a point where I don't know, we may never get back to a place where this opens up for me. Maybe
So what would your identity be now and in the next
well,
5 years?
We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's a little bit of the hesitation when you say, well, I'm trying to get you, get your stuff out. And I'm trying to say, yeah, but I'm trying to see myself.
Right.
I'm trying to define myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, I had Drum Up Studio a couple years ago. I plucked it because I liked the idea of how it was general.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of crossed my two worlds of doing web development and things like that, presentation and drumming, obviously. And I never used it. And all of a sudden, we brought it out of mothballs. I'm like, it's time to use that because it's a little more general, and it could be drum up business, drum up presentation, drum up ideas, drum up conversations, drum up drumming. So for me, it works. It's a space that I feel safe in as far as my identity because I don't have to put myself into one corner.
Right.
So maybe that'll calm me down a little bit to feel like, okay, I don't have to be so specific. Right? Because I overanalyze, that's what I do.
No, I do. I think it's good, especially right now. I mean, this is the latest challenge, and I know you've had many in your life, but really now with that ambiguous but very positive and to the point name, Drum Up Studios, then you can consult and produce for a wide variety. It's not just going to be musicians and artists. You do this for restaurants, you do this for, plus your background in marketing, and I'm sure the llamas fit in there somehow.
Yeah, I don't know how, but...
Well, I guess what you did for the llama farm, that is, you were handling all those aspects then. So
yes, I was, yeah.
That's kind of, you're making gold out of this latest challenge. And I think that's something that people that evolve and are successful in life do.
I heard early on with COVID, and I think we all probably heard it at some level, but it really struck me about using this chaos to your advantage the best you can. And I don't mean using it to scam people, but using it to, if you don't like where you're sitting or you're unsure of and I liked it where I was sitting. I liked being a drummer. I kind of knew what I was doing, and
you were on tour.
When I didn't have anything to do, I got to supplement that with some websites here and there. And so I had my rut, but I'm like, well, this is where I'm at. Maybe this is a way for me to shake that up a little bit.
Right.
And I can't control that, so let's take that chaos and try to turn that into something positive. Because again, if not, it becomes very...
Well, we spiral out. Yeah. You're a creator, we're creators, and you definitely helped me through that time too. So we definitely learn from challenges when you decide to. What are some of the other things that you think have been your greatest challenges? We'll just call them that. Traumas,
challenges. On a personal level, we've talked about it.
It all runs together.
Runs together. Yeah, I don't talk about it. The truth of it is probably my biggest challenge between dealing with life as people deal with life and dealing with how it affected me would be a period of time where my dad had a stroke, like 64, he's young. That ended up in a nursing home. He never was able to walk or work again, and he's still there 15 years
So this was your jarhead dad, your go-getter.
So my dad,
tough,
my best friend.
Best
and actually,
friend.
I was working with his company that he was a vice president of operations at a company in Milwaukee called Barcode. And they would hire me to do things and website stuff and database, and I enjoyed that. I'd go down there, hang out with my dad. I talked to him every day.
No sign, had a stroke.
No, so I got to know the people down there over the years. And then his boss called me up one day and he said, middle of the day, he said, you got to get down here. Your dad's having a stroke.
Oh my God.
And he was telling me what was happening. I'm like, oh God, okay. And then life was never the same, right? And these stories are common with pretty much everybody who's been around long enough. And I'm like, okay. And so I got my mom and we all met down there and they're like, oh, he probably won't make it through the night. And I'm like, okay. And here he's still alive. He's talked to him yesterday, but he's been in a nursing home since. And that is a very tough thing, of course, at that age. No one wants to see that. And I've seen over the years many people that young or younger there, and you realize how fragile that can be. But of course, we wanted him to move home after some rehab, which was never really going to happen. In our minds, we thought that would happen early on. And 3 months after that, my mom just suddenly died without warning. And so we were having to deal with that fallout. She was like 60, 62.
Wow.
And so, there's just it's chaos. And you want to talk about challenge. That's a low point. By default, because of the way I was, I kind of had to be with my dad every day, help him through therapy, the whole thing. How do you teach him to eat, teach him to write his name if he could. I remember one of the worst days was when therapy called me in to help him, yell at him to learn how to swallow again. He couldn't swallow, know how to swallow. Those are very weird days to watch your dad go, a week before or whatever,
It's full steam.
He's just a guy running a business. And the next thing you know, you're in this weird mode, and there's so many things going through your mind, you can't even comprehend, so you don't. And then as things calm down 8 months later, or you think they do, something will happen that triggers, and the next thing you know, you're having your first blown crazy panic attack, anxiety attack, you don't know what it is, you're dying. And I've heard other people talk about this, but I've never been through it. And from that moment on, I was in a spiral. And, it cost me. It cost me projects. It cost me years of time. I remember sitting down on an album project I was supposed to be on, but I was on meds, and having my two best friends who were on the project have to sit me down and fire me from the gig, from the album, because I couldn't play, I couldn't focus. It was the right thing to do. It was probably harder on them than it was on me. And, those are very low times because it takes everything from you, and then you spend many, many years trying to figure out what's happening. And the trial. It's therapy. It's trying out different, maybe drugs or medicine to try to get a hold of yourself, and reading and finding those tools. It's been a journey. I'm proud that I'm at this point. But I always share that with people because I had good people share that with me when I was going through some horrible times.
Right.
And I feel like it saved me. And I feel like, I must talk about it because you can get through this. I always hear people talk about those are some dark times.
Right. So COVID is probably, in the scheme of things, you have some tools from
lucky.
Really.
In a way, I'm lucky. And I've talked to other musicians who are kind of my ilk, say, we're lucky in a way. We're used to having to fend and fight and be on our own. We're not materially affected by being bumped out of an office situation or a structure. That can be very hard on people. It's very scary. We kind of live in that. I'm not saying we're in fear every day, but there's a different mindset. You get ingrained about
I think it's an agility, right?
It's definitely flexibility, agility to dance with it. And we can deal with that. Just like if you put me or a lot of us into that more corporate structure, we'd be like, what is going, we're not able to deal. You just run us over,
Crushing,
because that's a tough deal too, right? So we were able to deal with that. And yes, and I already had my tools. I was already introverted. So, hey, is my internet on? We're fine.
We're fine.
Can I get stuff delivered? Awesome.
I have a lot of people that need me. Cool.
I'm good. If you need me, call me.
Yeah.
I already know how to Skype you.
I'm already not sleeping.
I was already not leaving my house to come visit you anyway. So this worked out just fine for all of us. So outside of losing my gigs and some money and, whatever, it's all fine. Other than the sheer terror of what was happening with the world. But
right. And I think kind of now circling back to the beginning of this part where the humor, is it's pervasive. When it seems when to say no. Otherwise, it's like we got to figure out a way to look at this with humor because it's just.
Humor is funny, isn't it? I've always used humor as my out. I've used humor when my parents fought. I used humor in new school settings every time we were kids as a way to diffuse. In any relationship, I do use humor. It's anxiety a lot of times.
Sure.
It's insecurity. We can call it what it is. We know what it is. We know what you're doing.
Right.
We're on to you. Might as well own it. And I do love humor, and I think people do take things too seriously.
Yeah.
And you can take things seriously and still have humor on some level. But yeah, I use humor.
Balance.
I use humor. I can be serious. I can be. If somebody needs me to be serious, I'll be serious. But come on, man.
Come on, man. It's just code.
It's just COVID. Come on, man.
It's just COVID. No, it's just code.
It's just code. Come on, it's just code. Yeah.
It's just cold.
Yeah, I mean, the only downer with COVID is, I haven't seen my dad in a nursing home. He hasn't been out of his room in a year.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard, and really let some people down. But yeah, it's tough.
It is. It's difficult seeing, I think, and you've been dealing with this for quite some time, the person that is your best friend and that was the rock, obviously you've been the rock for years and years now. But not to be able to see him.
I saw him once in April. I got a call saying, we think he's passing. We think he's deteriorating. You need to come. And so they set a whole thing up with the hazmat suits and said, you got 20 minutes to say goodbye. So imagine, it's in April, and it's all new.
It's almost a year now.
And I'm like, okay. So I'm going to say goodbye in a hazmat suit to my dad.
You're going to scare the shit out of him.
And now he knows. He understood the hazmat suit, but I didn't sit there and go, I'm here because I know you're going to die.
Right.
He's still alive. Turned out, on everything, they got that wrong. And he's actually,
Kicking
doing
it.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a weird emotional, on top of everything else, getting those calls, and then you got to go down there, and you had to put the whole suit on, and you got 20 minutes to say goodbye, and I'm like, this is craziness. This is all. And then I kept waiting for the phone call. Like every time I get a call, I'm like, oh, he passed.
I kind of remember that, and I'm like checking, and you're like, no, seems to be fine.
And then at some point, I'm like, he's calling me because he's feeling better, and he's like, hey man, how's it going? I could use some stuff. I'm like, well, I can't bring you anything, but I can ship it to you through Amazon. And
so tiring.
And I'm happy to say that we're wrong. I'm just saying that it's an exhausting thing, all these emotions we all go through.
And then an added layer on top of it.
Yeah, so I don't know, like people that like you or the people who have children, I don't have that, so I can't imagine that layer of, there has to be a whole nother level of, oh my God, how do I deal with this?
Yeah, each person's experience is so different right now.
Everybody's got something.
Right. Well, I want to say, in closing, everyone should check out my website. Where is this camera I'm looking at? There it is.
Pick one. There's like one here.
Yeah, pick one. In the show notes, as people always say, I'm going to put Jeffrey's information. So if you need like production work, putting together these various creative packages, he's a champion. You have kept my work on the forefront. It's
really looking good.
The website, of course, is my portfolio. That's what people can look at to get that first, and it is. It's your best foot forward, and you really have always done an exceptional job for me and everyone we know. And, for whatever it's worth, I've told you this before, but I think what you've done during this time is just amazing. And not just because I'm going to benefit from it.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait, it just feels like, hey, I don't need an invoice later. Is that what it is?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a little plug. No, invoice me, it's fine. Got some things in the works.
I'll pay you in smiles.
Percentage, right? We're working on percentage.
Half smiles.
Yeah, half smiles, half percentage. And you get to wear the monster slippers while you're here.
Those are something.
Yes. Show the monster slippers.
What is going on here? They make you wear these things when you come in here. So be prepared.
This is in our attempt to not take ourselves all together too seriously.
It grounds you.
Right.
Really?
Really grounding. They're filled with lead.
They are filled, yes. Yeah. There's no gravity in this room.
Right, we're floating. No, but really, I think it's exciting, and who knows what all we were going to evolve out of anyway.
Yeah.
Like this, I think
everybody's doing that, and quite honestly, like you and these other guys, truthfully, I'm being pulled as much as I'm pushing, and so I'm benefiting too.
Yeah.
And that's kind of nice. Like if you can get in that nice symbiotic relationship,
absolutely,
that can really be energizing, and it can be very successful, especially as individual people.
Right.
You sometimes need. We don't have a business. We don't have a marketing department. So it's kind of nice that we've been able to push and pull each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about that a lot, that the co-creation, it's exponential energy.
Yeah.
So instead of it doing everything yourself, just having someone else's energy in on it, not to mention the expertise and, keeping you from pulling your hair out and all of that it's priceless.
It is priceless.
It is priceless. So I thank you.
Oh, but thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jeffrey Allen
Thank you for having me. Or Jalen.
Jalen, Jazz, Jail.
We will display the new
We will
logo at some point. Maybe we'll
Yes,
put that in the show notes.
It's not. Yeah, we'll put the new logos in the show notes. We will keep you posted. And yeah, thanks for being with us.
Good luck to you. This is gonna be wonderful.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's feral fucking monkeys.
Yeah.